Hey everybody, welcome to the second of a series of videos this week about terrain. Today's video is going to cover the new WarLock tile system from WizKids games. Now I'll have links to where you can find this stuff, but this stuff you can actually find in your local hobby store. I've seen it pop up in the stores around here. I'm going to be specifically reviewing the dungeon tile set as well as some of the accessory sets that you can see here. Now we are doing a week of terrain videos here, so I'll have a link to the playlist below as well as some other links to some other hobby playlists and things like that that I've done. But let's just go ahead and jump right into this terrain here, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. Okay, here you can see the box, of course, for the dungeon tiles set for WarLock. Now they do have like a town tile set, and then I think 3 or 4 various accessory packs. I'm going to show you 2 of those accessory packs and then 2 sets of dungeon tiles actually. So all of that is actually in this box. So I've got 2 dungeon tile sets and then 2 accessory sets fitting this box. And now I probably couldn't put anything more in there. It's pretty snug. But I figured we'd lead off with storage because that's always a big question when it comes to terrain. So let me pop this open. I will say before I do that, that the box at retail will have a nice vacuum form plastic insert to pop the stuff in and out pretty easy. But I will say right off the bat, this stuff is very, very sturdy. And so there's no real problem just kind of like setting it in here somewhat haphazardly, but there is some organization here that you'll see. Oh, whoops, I had it turned upside down for opening it. But you can see it is full. So there's 2, again, dungeon sets and then 2 of the different accessory sets all kind of in here. Now I have bagged up some of this stuff. So for example, these little pieces here, these here are going to be your friend. You can see those little, almost like little J's. So if you're trying to get sort of oddly shaped things together, these little suckers here will help you kind of fill those gaps as you need them, because especially as you go around corners and you try to be as efficient as possible with all the wall pieces that you get, these little things are going to save your life. So I went ahead and bagged those up separately. And then here it gives you, now I have tons and tons of clips here because of the 2 sets, so you get way more. Even 1 bag of clips is more than you need. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have these little suckers here, which I'll tell you about in a minute from each set. And then we of course have various different things here. So we have these interior walls, which I think you get probably way more than you need, but it kind of depends on what you're doing with your dungeon. I'll explain those. And then you do get doors and things with the dungeon tile set, and these do open and close like so. But there is a doors expansion, and you get some different doors, and you can see these come already mounted on a clear base, and obviously all this stuff is pre-painted, which is super awesome. And then these will snap out. Don't worry about that. That sometimes they just, you know, they just come out, so you just pop them back in. So here's one of the doors like so. You can see an example of that. And there's some funny ones here. There's like little gates and things. So if you have like a little sewer gate or something like that, that's pretty cool. Little, you know, almost like little jail gates and stuff like that there. So that's in the door set. And then you also have like a stairway set, and you'll get like little, these boxes are really neat here. So if we take a look at this, you can see there's a lid there, that comes on like that. Then you have like a little trough or something, which you could put this back on like so. So you can kind of have different types of boxes and things like this. And you can actually, there's little containers and things like that. So some of the accessories are gonna have things like that. So you have these sort of interior halls here. So some of these, anything you see with this metal tab here is going to go inside. It's going to be like an interior thing. So if you look at these little half walls, these are going to go inside here. And then instead of an exterior wall is going to be this big chunky thing like that. Let's see. Oh, one other cool thing. I love this piece. This is a trap door, kind of secret door passage thing that opens like that. So that's pretty cool. And then there's also little stairs. So you can have little stairs and then maybe have, you know, off the side the second floor of your dungeon or whatever, and things like that. There's wooden boxes like this, like I just showed you that with, or sorry, that's stone. And then we have little boxes here, same idea. So that's all the accessory stuff. So now we're going to kind of lay this stuff out here. And again, this is about 2 sets worth of stuff. And then I'll just kind of show you a little bit about how the build's going to go, and some just kind of tips and tricks that I've found trying to just build a couple of dungeons with this. Okay, now I set aside some of the more window dressing type components here. This is the real kind of meat and potatoes components that you're going to be using when you go to build a dungeon. Now you can see here, let's start off on the right hand side over here. And we have these floor tiles, and they come in different shapes, and they have double-sided, so there's wood and stone, which is super cool. And you can see you have these little joints here, and these are for the clip pieces. So this is, now again, this is 2 sets worth of stuff, so just kind of divide everything in half to tell you what one set is. So you're going to get 2 of these, again double-sided, these long hallways. Then you have these kind of sort of bigger rooms here, these little squares. And then you get a whole mess of these other little squares, again, that you can draw around and, you know, do snaking hallways and things like that. Now in terms of the walls that are going to go around these floors, you've got basically 3, maybe 4 types of things here. You have these big exterior walls, and you can see you've got larger corner pieces like this one here, and you've got a few of those. Again, cut it in half if you're trying to figure out how much you get in one set. And then you have these little ones here, these little shorter ones. And then you have what I'll just say is probably not quite enough of the basic wall. So this is the probably you're going to want to use the most of these pieces, and I think because depending on how you build your dungeon, really, I don't want to jam it too hard, but you probably are going to run out of these before you run out of any of these other pieces. But on the other hand, they give you a ton of these doors, and I'm not sure that is probably the wisest use of space and materials in this case. And that's really my main gripe with the system. Now we're going to jump into, you know, what I really enjoy about the system, but that I just want to kind of point that out. If you look at kind of the distribution of plastic here, the spot where it's kind of lacking, I think, is this, where they probably could have maybe took away some floors and then maybe some of these doors, and then gave you like a handful more of those exterior walls. Now you can, of course, have more interior walls, and you probably have, this is hard to say, it kind of depends on what you're trying to do with your build. But, you know, you probably have a little bit too much of the interior wall as well. So let's talk about the build part of this. Well, again, the 2 sort of key pieces here are going to be these little J or L pieces that I showed you there. And because, let's take a look. So I just took one of the simple squares, the larger squares there, and then I just used the larger corner pieces there, and those fit nicely. But let's say we start to get a little bit of an oblong type of shape here. So we'll just throw 2 of these down here like that, and then we're going to throw that like so. And then now we're going to be able to fit one of these in there. Perfect. But a lot of times when you're building, you know, different sort of snaking shapes of the dungeon, you're going to end up in a situation where you have like a little bit of a gap there. And that's where these come into play. And these will snap into any of these pieces. So you can see there's a little hole there and there on the corner piece. It's also there, oops, there and there on the sort of small wall pieces. And of course it's on the little corner pieces as well. Because maybe you've used up this large corner piece, because you know, you get that many of them with 2 sets, and so now you need to increase the size of the small one, so now it'll match up to that size. You can see this one has this little piece there. So these are good, these are great, and I would say they give you probably enough of these. I'm not super sure about that. I feel like you could always use more of these. So that's the first main important piece of making your build kind of cohesive. Now the second piece is going to be these little clippies here. So we're going to take these, and these are, I think they do give you enough, because over time you're probably going to end up snapping one. I haven't done that yet, but maybe I'll do it on camera. So let's take a look at this. Now I feel like I'm going to snap one of these one day, so they do probably give you enough of these, but we'll go ahead and just jam it in here like so. And so you can see it's kind of partway in, but you want to push it a little bit more, like so. See how now it's in a lot flusher. And then you're going to jam it into, you know, another floorboard here. So we're going to kind of do this. It's a little tricky on camera because you do have to give it some force. There we go. You probably heard that off camera. I give it a lot of force there. So that is not super easy to do, but I would say you don't necessarily have to do it in most places. So they give you all of these, and I kind of thinking like, oh, they want me to clip in the entire dungeon floor. I don't think so. I don't think that is a necessary thing, because once you kind of get everything set down and you get your walls up and stuff like that, it's not really going to go anywhere. Now, if you wanted to pick up the whole dungeon and move it without, changing it, then yeah, these are going to come in super handy, because you can see here, they have these slots on the side too, where you're going to jam them into here and then jam them into the side like that. But you don't need to do that at all. And I would say to conserve these plastic things, which again, I haven't broken yet, but I feel is going to happen. Now, where these are really going to come in handy is for these interior walls like so. Now these I would want this for. So let's pull it apart. See, I just ripped that. And every time I do that, I feel like I'm going to break it. So what these do is they have these metal tabs right there that are going to fit like so. And then you're going to push this right in the middle. So let's just, I have to do this off camera pretty much. There we go. And now you can see that's not really going anywhere. So if you want these kind of interior walls and things to hop over, then that's where I would use the clippies for, is to kind of secure those throughout your dungeon as you've got that. Because if you leave it, I'll show you what happens if you leave it. So if you were just trying to like stick this in here and then wedge it in there, like it will stay a little bit there, but it's a little bit wobbly and it's going to fall pretty easy. So you could just do that and just leave that. And if you can't be fussed with that, and if pushing these in is really a pain for you, then this isn't bad. Like I'm saying, you don't really have to use these clips. Again, it's good for moving it. It's good for securing certain situations like this that tend to fall over, but it's not really required. So let me just do a quick little build here, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about in terms of the excess or lack of certain components. Okay, so I went ahead and built a dungeon, basically kind of maxing out these little walls here. And so again, I could build this in a little bit of a different way, but I don't think this is too big. I mean, it's basically a couple of rooms. I didn't add any dividers or anything, or any of the special doors or anything like that. So obviously this could be divided up into a couple of rooms, but really you've got kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 rooms with a couple of hallways. And so you come along in here and you see everything like that. So what do we have left as far as pieces go? Well, we've got 3 of the little walls. You can see right there. 2 of the larger corners, or excuse me, 4 larger corners and 2 of the smaller corners. We've got a bunch of doors left. We have a mess of floor tiles, and we've got 2 of the longer floor tiles there, a couple more floor tiles down there. So this could be about what they're going for. So again, I just want you to be aware of it. To me, it feels like there could be probably maybe a lot less of these, or just some less, or less floors or something, because if you kind of gave away half of the floors and then did some more of the corners and the walls, then you might be able to squeeze another room or 2 out of this. But again, you could build it in a few different ways. You could set it up so that it's easy to kind of move from room to room and so on, and kind of build stuff on the fly as well. Kind of depends what you're planning to do with your encounters. Are they roaming through like a Hero Quest kind of situation where they're going from room to room to room, or is this here enough for your 4-hour session? It kind of depends how you play the game, right? So, but kind of trying not to harp too much on that. Let's talk about the quality of it. I mean, it's super sturdy. It's resin-y plastic. I think it's resin. I mean, you can be really abusive with it in a certain sense, and it's got the double-sided thing, which is cool. I like how it's got the wood and the stone. Again, the wood is also going to help be compatible with the town set, which they've come out with. Everything is really cool. I mean, the doors opening and closing is really neat. Everything's pre-painted, of course. You've got the variety in terms of all the different accessories and things that you can get for it. The system itself is really cool because you can use, the larger walls to go around the corners, or, and then the smaller walls will kind of go like with an indented corner versus what I'm saying here is going around like that. Or you can kind of mix and match. So you can kind of be a little bit clever with how you do it. And like I said, these little sort of extender pieces really help you with that. So they do kind of go a long way to sort of alleviating sort of the issue with the lack of the outer wall, so to speak, and they do give you some tools to do that. And again, you get a bunch of these, which you can go in and you could make like a little mini room that have these kind of half-size walls here, like so, and kind of work it that way and kind of extend it. One thing that is interesting, which might be an idea that you could try to do, and I did try to do this here. So one last thing I'll kind of leave you with. So you have these kind of outer edges here. So typically you're supposed to lock these in, you know, with that. So the holes are facing, you know, inside so you don't see them. But if for some reason it's facing on the outside, they give these little kind of backfills here. So you can clip these in there, push them in like that. And one thing I thought might be interesting is if be able to somehow come up with a system where you could have these outer walls and then push these in so like this, and so then you could have just maybe a lower outer wall, but it still gave you the wall if you really need that important to you. And I did try clipping off some of the sort of the little plugs on here and sort of you know, carving it away to see if you could do that. If you had a little bit of ingenuity there, you could snap those in, but it doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite like go in snugly. So you could use a lot of these inner walls along the outside, but that might be a possibility. I just haven't figured out actually how to do that yet. And then you can make a lot of use out of these inner walls and make them as outer walls. And then you could really use, you know, all of that flooring and stuff and build a really good sized dungeon that would just extend the use of the material. But other than that kind of just strange ratio, which, you know, I'm kind of the dummy here. Maybe that's not really what the desirable effect is. Maybe you want more floor tiles because then you can do different shaped rooms, but just so the size of the dungeon isn't as big, but maybe that's not as important as having just a variety in terms of the shapes and everything. So anyway, that is the WarLock tile system. Really cool, really good production quality. Unlike a lot of these kind of tile systems, you don't have to wait for a Kickstarter. You can just go into the shop and get them. I've seen them all over the place now, and I definitely recommend it. Just kind of with a little bit of those sort of warnings or caveats or whatever you want to call them going into it in terms of how much exactly you're going to get and how they're all going to kind of work together. And again, I don't think you need to go crazy with clipping it in and stressing out about that, because I don't have a single clip in here. And, you know, just moving guys around, you know, if you knock a wall over, oh, pick it back up and you're good to go. And push everything back together and it doesn't matter. And then in that case, if you do have to rebuild a room and you've got the idea for it, you can just quickly just line everything up and then build it, and then away you go. And it's a piece of cake to tear down and break apart. And again, the storage solution, it all fits back snugly in one box, even with 2 sets and 2 accessories. So really, this is not that big of a box here. If you wanted to go crazy with this, you could get enough to fill up 2 boxes, and you're not taking up any room in your storage, you know, whatever your storage situation is, and you've got that. Not that I'm trying to tell you to spend hundreds of dollars, but you know what I mean? So it's definitely a workable solution. I think it's a good solution. So anyway, that's WarLock Tiles. Thanks for watching.